back to First to the Floor. Ben Vallis here. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Alongside me, Celtics blog's finest, Wayne Spooney, and back again to ensure the Celtics keep winning from Boston Sports. It's Dan Greenberg. Greeny, how we doing, man?
Listen, I feel like we're all in the same boat. I'm a mess, but I'm confident, but I'm nervous, but I'm, I don't know. It's the same old rodeo that we just thought we got through when KP came back. And now it's just, of course it happens 2 wins away from a title. It's just, I don't know what to think.
It is brutal. And frankly, me and Ben jumped on like 2 or 3 minutes before you did, Greeny. And we spiraled very quickly. All of a sudden we were talking about game 5.
It did not take long.
No, it did not.
Yeah, well, look, here's what we know about the injury. It's a torn medial retinaculum, which apparently allows dislocation of the posterior tibialis tendon, essentially pain and instability around the left ankle is what he's going to be experiencing. His previous injury was to the right calf, so while unrelated anatomically speaking, I should say, it's probably due to overcompensating in one leg leading to an injury in the other, but although I am speculating there. The good news is that Dr. Brian Suttera, Dr. Daniel Karazi, and Dr. Jesse Morse, who are all like online doctors who like spring to life in these kind of moments, all think that KP will play it through it. They're all somewhat optimistic that while it might require surgery in the offseason, Greeny, there's some optimism that he might be able to play game 3 and 4. How are you feeling in general, about how this might turn out for the season?
Normally when we get this type of stuff, I do my own research. I go to WebMD and I talk myself, but I don't even know how to pronounce any of the words in this injury. So I'm not even. The problem is you have those doctors that say, tape it up, put him in a brace, ready to go. Then I have other Twitter doctors who are telling me he's cooked. He's out for the series. So I'm choosing to believe what I want to hear and putting stock into that and ignoring. Like there was some other like Dr. Chow fantasy football person who was like, he is not day to day. He is cooked for and I'm like, well, this is a disaster. But then I read Washburn's tweets and I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't even an issue. And my problem was I went back and found a clip of him at the end of the third quarter with this, he's running, he's jumping, he's blocking. And I'm like, okay, if they're telling me he got hurt at the 3:27 mark, but he's still running and doing things, is it something where, I don't know, I'm not a horse tranquilizer expert. Can you just shoot him up and just say, listen, you won't feel anything for the next week and a half and just hope that his tendons don't snap? I don't know. Give me 15 minutes, give me good rim protection, and that's more than enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, one of my buddies is not a doctor, but he's very versed in horse tranquilizers, so I may give him a call and see how that goes. But I suspect that it is one of those injuries where it probably hurts really bad, but if you can ignore it, like you're saying, Greeny, you can probably play close to 100%. I think he won't play until we lose a game. And then I think, as my cat is bumping my monitor, like it just seems like we're up 2-0. If we can go in there and steal one without him, great. If not, it's 2-1. Then he plays, and I think we got a really good chance of at least getting one in Dallas. And that's just my thought. Because then if it's 3-0, it's like, all right, well, he's definitely not going to play game 4. There's no point in that. And then if it's game 5, all right, he's playing. We're back home. He's had a week off just about. Let's do it. So
you would go with the Pacers series approach where up 2-0, he probably could come back, but you see, I thought of that, but I'm almost like, this is the finals. Like, if you have a chance, like it's one thing to say, okay, if we can go up 3-0 in the conference finals without him, great. But now you're here and you're like, there really is a death nail if you go up 3-0, even if he's at 65 to 70%. But I almost think like, just keep him on the defense, like play 4-on-5 on offense and just keep him in the paint for the rim protection. Because really, I think where they need him is defensively. I think they can figure things out on the offensive end. There's enough shooting. I would hope that Tatum comes around. It's his intimidation and presence defensively that I thought was his biggest impact in both of these games. So just put him at half court and just have him jog back on. I don't know. You have to try everything at this point, maybe.
Yeah, I'm with you, Greeny, because, like, again, we know nothing, all speculation here, but if rest isn't going to be a factor, like, he can't rest and magically heal his tendon by the sound of it, if surgery is indeed required after the season. So just play him, because if you go up 3-0, if you give yourself the best chance possible of going up 3-0, then you've got a chokehold on the series. If you lose one, suddenly Dallas are like, oh, look what we can do now that your big Latvian Moses is injured. Then they've got the momentum swinging back their way. Like, now's your chance to, like, put your what is it? What do we say, Spoonie? Put the foot on the throat or put the ass on the throat, I believe is the term.
Ass to throat, yes.
This is our opportunity for ass on throats here, going up 3-0 in Dallas. And then maybe if it's unsustainable, then you can go, okay, he really can't go. Let's go with Al and one of our backup bigs in game 4 and then potentially bring him back in game 5 if it goes that far. I just think, I agree, Spoonie, we're this close. Just you have to do everything you can. KP said that he'll die out there if he has to. He may literally fucking have to die out there at this point. He may actually just accidentally die inadvertently, given how apparently injury prone he is. It feels like that's at play. But looking at if he doesn't play Greeny, actually, just quickly, Tom Westerholm had this tweet. They're not kidding when they say that Porzingis' injury is rare. A 2006 study said that there were just 32 documented cases of a dislocated posterior tibial tendon in all of English literature. And it just happens to happen to us during the motherfucking NBA finals where we're like dying for this championship to happen.
It's every year, right? We just can't have, and again, it's sort of like, well, we have benefited. So maybe this is just the bill coming due to the path that they've been on. But at the same time, it's like, you can't just throw me one title, like one bone, like have everybody get hurt next year. Like, especially because now it's like, if this was at the start of the series, it's like, all right, this is your typical Celtics injury that ruins our lives. But now it's like, you're twisting the knife, given how good he looked coming back. Because I think we were all expecting, like, all right, he'll be rusty. He hasn't played in a month. And he looked so good. I'm almost thinking, like, is he sneaky Wolverine and, like, will actually be okay? Am I delusional and in denial and just trying to talk myself into it? Yes. But at the same time, it's game 3 and we're 2 wins away. So what choice do I have?
Yeah, my one fear about him going out there playing through pain is just like, man, Luka will sniff that out and take him up to the perimeter because his drop defense has been awesome. But you need to be mobile with drop to play it well, and how Porzingis has been playing it, because he has been like completely spot on, like just getting out enough to slow the driver down and then getting back to protect the rim and take away the lob. And like, if he's just a beat slow on any of that, all of a sudden, like, playing him is like, is that better than just playing somebody else? I don't know. But I think offensively, even if he's 65%, his spacing is going to be valuable no matter what. So I'd worry about the defensive impact.
Yeah, I think the fear is that, right before Joe took him out in the fourth quarter, you could tell he was slow to the ball. He got, the Kyrie drive by him. So that is the double-edged sword. But then you weigh the option is like 65% of a slow Porzingis better than 100% of a Cornet or a Tillman. I don't know. We're going to have to. In reality, let's just make 25 threes and it not even be an issue.
Exactly.
Yes, that's what we're due for.
Yeah, like
we're due to hit our threes.
Just shoot, have a normal shooting game from 3, and we won't even have to worry.
Yep.
That would be nice. And hopefully, who knows, maybe like several Joe Rogan-esque human growth hormone drug cocktails later after game 2, maybe he's good to play, at least to a higher capacity than he was to end that one. But Greeny, who are we going to call upon? Like, whether he misses the whole game or whether he's on a significantly limited minutes restriction, are you looking at Tillman, Luke Cornett, O'Shea Brissett, or Tatum at the 5 is a popular one as well?
I think for game 3, like initially, Tatum at the 5, up everybody else's minutes. I thought maybe this, because I'm trying to think of what they did before KP came back. It was some Cornette minutes, right? Obviously, we didn't see Tillman, but I just think the way I fear switches when it comes with Cornette, and I just think the way that Tatum has completely removed that, being the 5. You have to just say, Al, you had 3 days off. We need you for 2 games, and you got to play him 35 minutes. And it sucks that now there's, 1 day in between, right? It's Wednesday, Friday between games 3 and 4. So that's the price you have to pay. But also, I don't know, unleash Brissett, get energy, chaos. Like, I don't know, especially if they're going to be switching. I think at this point you have to try everything, but I think Joe's going to ride with Tatum, you're our 5, and Al, we need you to mainline chocolate milk for 48 hours so that you can recover, because that's really their best chance.
I know if Jake is listening now or he will be listening later, he's screaming Tatum at the 5 because he's been on that for a long time. But I am very confident in Xavier Tillman in this matchup. He was awesome in the March game against them. Like, that was probably his best game as a Celtic. I little bit concerned offensively where they can kind of treat him like a complete non-factor and help even more at the rim without being punished. But defensively, I think he can hold up. Absolutely. Like, he can do fine on Luka. He's going to get beat once in a while, but for the most part, he's got the right build. He's quick feet for what he looks like, for how stocky he is. Kyrie worries me. I think Kyrie can probably shake him pretty easily, but then it's like, I mean, I guess if they're taking the ball out of Luka's hands and going to Kyrie isolations against Tillman, that's fine with me. Like, get out of your offense, whatever, go for it. So I personally, Al, I think you're right. Sorry, Al, you're playing 35, 36, 38. That's happening. It's just a matter of who's occupying the other, 15 minutes. And personally, I'd go with Tillman. Although, if Tillman looks like shit in his first 3-minute stint, then I would probably consider Brissett. I just do not love Luke against Luka Doncic or Kyrie, really. It scares me.
I just feel like whenever Tillman's in, he doesn't rebound. Like, he's not a tall 6'8". And I feel like if you're going to have, if you remember, Lively made a huge impact in the Wolves and Oklahoma City series as an offensive rebounder. I just think as bad as Cornet is on switches and with slow foot speed, I trust him to at least, you can't teach 7-1 or whatever. Yeah. So it's like, even if he's just in there contesting a rebound and it's tapped out and then Tatum comes and clears it, I fear Tillman's better switching, but not better defensive rebounding or offensive rebounding. And I'm always of the thought that for a Celtics team that has streaky shooting, like we just saw, offensive rebounding is so important. And I just think that's the trade-off. But same thing, if Cornet's getting burned, take him out. If Tillman, there can't be this slow trigger from Joe on this. He has to understand the feel of the game and be quick to make an adjustment.
Yeah, that's where the 2-0 buffer is really good, obviously, as we do have just a little bit of rope for some trial and error to try Luke out there who probably will get burned if he does switch or even in drop coverage. That's like the main difference. They're similar in height, Luke and Kristaps, but Kristaps, he's just so tall and long with his limbs that he does kind of hold up and drop, where Luke, we've seen it over a long period of time now. He just doesn't stand a chance. The other aspect is disrupting the Mavs lobs, and initially my head went to, well, that's Luke because he's the big body, but it hasn't been disrupting them from the air while the ball's in the air. It's more just been keeping a body on that big in the dunker spot and preventing them from even getting to a lob opportunity to begin with. So in that sense, that could be Brissett, it could be Tillman, or it could be Luke really to disrupt that lob. So I'm going with Tillman as well, just because I think you're not going to get switching, solid drop coverage, offensive rebounding, all in one package in your big off the bench. You've kind of just got to go with the best of the bunch in terms of that diversity. And to me, it's just Tillman, but it's not good either way. So hopefully we do just see a lot of Tatum at the 5. But then my concern with that is who slides in. If it's Tatum at the 5, everyone slides down a position, Spoonie. Are you going with Pritchard at the number 1 guard spot? Are you going with Stock Exchange and then you're sliding Sammy Buckets into that 3 spot there? Either way, you're opening yourself up to vulnerabilities defensively in that sense as well. So what do you think the direction Joe takes there?
I don't know, man. That's why I go back to Tillman, because he kind of he's not a great rebounder. You're totally right, Greeny, and it's definitely a weakness. And he's a terrible offensive rebounder, especially. But he's better than Sam Hauser, So Tatum at the 5, I love the idea of it. I just think someone's gotta play other than Al Horford. So then you're losing so much size. If it's Pritchard, who I love Pritchard, he's been fine this series, but you're really, really small if that's the case. And then if it's Hauser, who has actually been okay as well defensively, I think that would be my answer if we're going Tatum at the 5 is bring in Hauser and have both Jays out there and the Stock Exchange. But then it's then Al comes back in and then Pritchard comes. I don't know, man. It really leaves us kind of thin if we're going to try and get real minutes with Tatum at the 5.
Yeah, I just think the good part is this is not a new situation. Like, it'd be one thing if they lost Tatum right before, or Jalen, like they've had, 35, 36 games without Porzingis, including the playoffs. So I think it's not a shock to how they'll want to play or, surviving without him. But I think you have to ride with Hauser in that first opportunity just because he gives you the size. His defense has sneaky been okay. Mm-hmm. And just they're both going to get picked on between him and Pritchard. I would just tend to believe the guy who's a little bit taller has a greater chance of challenging shots and making it tough. I fear, even though Pritchard gets right into you and he's a dog, he is what he is in terms of his height. Like, you're going to be able to get your shot off cleaner over him than Hauser. And I feel like Hauser, he's white enough to where you're going to bait people into iso ball. And we know that's the secret weapon is everybody sees Hauser and their eyes get big. Mm-hmm. I think Pritchard, because he's such a tenacious defender, they're almost like, all right, he's like a pit bull. Like, you don't want to go at him. People see Hauser and they think that they can light him up and he holds his own. I would appreciate, or I would think it's an advantageous move to unleash that sort of bait in a game like this when the Mavs are going to come out trigger happy. They're going to come out and try to put you away. I think you can bait them into bad isolation offense with Hauser.
Yeah, I can get to that. Here's a cheeky little hypothetical for you, Greeny, just to put this whole injury situation into some perspective, hopefully. Would you be more or less concerned if it was Al Horford out instead of KP and we had a healthy KP in this case?
Would I be more or less concerned? I think I'd be more concerned. I don't know why. Right. I just because Al is the rock, right? Yep. I feel like 60% of the Celtics' success is just feeding off Al Horford. And while there's the potential to have a do it for Al mentality, I just think that his intangibles is more important than having a healthy Porzingis. And I don't know. I trust his 3-point shooting more than Porzingis. I don't know why. I don't, the numbers don't really back that up. They're all under,
I know 30%. What you mean.
But I just feel like, the basketball gods will reward Al Horford as opposed to Porzingis. So I want Horford in the lineup.
I totally agree 100%. And I would even say I'd be considerably more concerned if Al was hurt than KP. Ooh. You can scale Al's minutes up to 36, 37. You can't do that with Porzingis. He just can't really play more than 30, 31, 32 minutes. And if one of them's out, we need all the minutes covered we can get with one of those two. So I think that's a big check mark for Al. And Al's just more versatile defensively. Mm-hmm. And I think that's more important than the offensive versatility that KP brings us. KP's been awesome defensively, but maybe the Mavs find something and it's shit, we can't play drop. We have to switch this action. Al's like, all right, yeah, I got it. Been doing it my entire career. Whereas KP, it's oh, good luck out there, buddy. And he's done okay when he's been asked to switch, but you don't want him doing that, for 20 possessions in a finals game when you're running his minutes extra high up. So it's pretty clearly I would be more concerned with Al for me.
Yeah, and stop me if I'm getting too copium here. I've found my mind wandering this way since I woke up to this news this morning. But is it a case of we've re-summoned playoff Al? He's 38 years old and he's saying, all right, you need one more big punch from Celtic Al Horford again before I get my championship, before I retire, Greeny? Is it
listen, I'm ready to up your copium. I'm sure Please. You guys saw the picture floating around. He had a Giannis moment with him and Luka after that and one foul in the fourth quarter. It's on Reddit. It's on the Celtics Reddit right now. They did the same sort of back and forth right before Al dunked it on Giannis's head. So I don't know. I just feel like they're so due for a good 3-point shooting game. It feels like this is like the game 5 against Cleveland where you could get 4 to 6 threes from Al because they're going to say, okay, you prove that you can beat us. And this is, I think, where Al says, I'm finally getting my title. I'm going to bury you with 5 threes.
Oh my God. I might explode with excitement if he buries 6 threes and we win by 25. Let me live in that world.
Yeah, I mean, the only other extension I'd add to that in terms of copium is like, are we just generally more motivated? That we always talk about like the human nature aspect of you go into game 3 of a series, you're up 2-0. Human nature will dictate that you just can't be like as physically motivated as you would be otherwise. We take away our ace up the sleeve, if you will, in KP, and suddenly other J's like, well, fuck that. Like, we're going to get this shit done anyway, despite the odds literally being against us. Now I know I'm really gassing myself up copium-wise now, but again, this is where my mind takes me when I'm left alone to my own devices. Any other thoughts on the KP stuff before we get to a quick ad break here, guys?
I hope he plays. That's it. I just hope he
yes.
plays. Just be a decoy. At the very worst, just be a decoy.
Even if he can give us like 15 minutes, so it's not Luke or Tillman or Brissett or Tatum, like we can just keep our normal rotation. KP, good 15 minutes. That's all we need, big dog. Hit a couple threes, block a couple shots, and then ride off into the sunset.
Yeah, love it. All right, quick word from PrizePicks, and then we'll be back in a moment to talk about Game 3 adjustments.
PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 5 million members. It is the most fun and exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. With PrizePicks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a PrizePicks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and you're locked in. The finals means more on PrizePicks, and so do the star players. You get boosted payouts on select basketball stars that you won't find anywhere else. I've been cooking Spoonie and Ben by hammering more on Jaylen Brown points and Jason Tatum rebounds. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Shout out to PrizePicks. Shout out to Jake Eisenberg for the fantastic ad read. Who, thank you, Spoonie. Jake said to us in our Discord, make sure you let the people know that I am a huge advocate for Tatum at the 5, and I totally forgot. So thanks for covering that, Spoons. All right, Greeny. The Celtics obviously up 2-0 heading to Dallas. I'm sorry to start with this angle. 12 teams in the past 10 years have come back to win a series after being down 0-2. What are your confidence levels like right now? Considering everything we've just discussed, all the circumstances and like the recent Celtics history, how like quietly confident are you about a series win here?
I mean, I want to be confident, but I'm also like terrified. I mean, I'm like you. I'm neurotic until I see it. So I just think if they play the way that they've played so far in the finals, even in the I think they're even in the non-KP minutes, drastically won the. So if you can just be even for the most part, I think you'll have the edge over the course of 48 minutes. I was anticipating the Mavs to spam their threes in game 2. Didn't happen. They only took 26. But they're averaging 34 a game at home in these playoffs. So I think you have to be ready for that. I fully anticipate their role players. Someone's going to have a Caleb Martin performance. Like, we haven't had to deal with that yet. That's coming. So I'm nervous about that, but I'm also kind of like you, like they're so close to it. I don't know if you guys heard Jalen's presser today where he talked about you have to just like trick your mind into believing you're the one down 0-2. I just believe in how prepared Joe has had this team for every stage of this run. And I just think they're looking at this instead of a woe is me situation that might have happened last year, like we saw when Tatum sprained his ankle in game 7. This time around, it's like they're not even fazed by it because they're just so locked in. And I think they know if you win this game, you have won the NBA title. We couldn't say that in game 3 last round, and they came out and found a way to win. Now it's like, this is it. You are not going to be the first team in NBA history to lose 4 straight, with or without KP. So I think all of that added in, knowing that you're going to get the Mavs' best punch will have them focused. And I think they'll find a way to pull it out. At least I hope. That's what I'm praying for.
I feel like emotionally I am not confident at all, and I'm complete disaster and a mess. But like rationally, we're just better than them, even without KP. And I think if you look at that game 2 win, like we should get some positive regression on the shooting. We shot 34 open or wide open threes and shot like 31% on them. And I think we were at 37% on open and 39% on wide open for the playoffs. So like if those number bumps up on that volume, we don't even have to play particularly good defense and we should win pretty easily. I do agree. Like, I think PJ Washington and Jones will feel more comfortable at home, probably actually make some shots, but man, like, they just don't really have anywhere to attack us at all. And their offense just looks so much more difficult than us. Like, we're just waltzing into the lane and generating just about any shot we want. And I don't really see how that fundamentally changes. It's not totally scheme. It's partially scheme, but it's mostly just personnel. Like, they have Luka Doncic. We know the Jays can blow by Luka Doncic anytime they want, and they have to send help. We know basically everybody we have can at least bother Luka enough where we don't have to completely undermine the entire defense and bring a bunch of help and let them generate wide open threes. And Luka's going to get his, and that's fine. And maybe PJ Washington goes 4 of 8 or 4 of 9 from 3. But I just really hard for me to see how, they'll get one. I think I picked Celtics in 5. I think they'll get one. I think it'll be game 4. But how are they going to beat us 4 out of 5 times? I have a tough time, like, even coming up with ways.
And it depends, right? If you think every series on average, the Celtics have one horrific shooting game, and that's what you always have to worry about. Well, you can make the case that was game 2, right? I mean, they shot 20-something% from 3. So if you survived, if you think, the Celtics play around, 800 basketball all year, 4 or 5, pick a section of the season, they were winning at pretty much like a 78 to 80% clip. So the thing that usually was that one loss was the poor shooting game. Well, you won that. So if that's your one bad game in a 5-game set and you won it, you would then have to assume if they just played at their level or slightly below their level, that's enough on volume against a team that can't crack 100. Like, it's not like Porzingis was the sole reason the Mavs were being kept under 100 points. So I think that's important. Obviously his rim protection and defense is what helped the Celtics get the separation. But in terms of the overall team defense, they've held teams to under 100 points without Porzingis. So I think that's where my confidence would be, is they survived the one game that's usually a loss in a 5-game set. If you blow that chance, what else are you going to do?
Yeah, our shot quality, despite poor efficiency, is a really promising stat. You guys just kind of touched on it, though. But the Celtics have had 21 wide-open field goal attempts per game, including 18 wide-open three-point field goal attempts per game in these first 2 games. Dallas have had significantly less. And then even the next tier down, so the defender within 4 to 6 feet, the margins between the Celtics and Mavs are still massively in favor of the Celtics. The shooting efficiency is going to progress to the mean at some point, hopefully, ideally, in the next game. And like you said, it's not like KP is the sole catalyst for that shot quality for the Celtics. So you do expect, you hope, for that efficiency to tick up in the right direction and for us to maintain those wide open looks. Like, no matter how you slice it, offensively, defensively, we're just so much more efficient and more dialed in than them. The other side of it is the not overreacting to Luka's first half scoring. And this is something that took me a long time to wrap my head around, including just within the confines of game 2, where Luka was absolutely going off. Jake's yelling at me in the playback, "Don't worry, stick with the game plan. Don't go away from the game plan. He will tire." And then he had one of his least productive fourth quarters of all time in game 2 there. And, we're able to switch 1 through 4. If we don't switch on the 5, we've done a really good job of containing the ball handler in the drop. I do expect us to switch a lot more if it is going to be predominantly Al Horford and even Tillman out there as well. And then the stock exchange, they're just chaos agents, man. Like, no matter what's going on in the front court as far as disrupting lobs and playing really solid drop defense on their guards, the stock exchange just feel like they're everywhere all of the time, all at once, just constantly generating turnovers. Transition-wise, like, the Mavs have averaged 60 points per 100 transition plays, which is like 10th percentile. The Celtics, I had to triple check this to make sure this disparity was accurate. Compared to that, so the Mavs 60 points per 100 transition plays. The Celtics have averaged 162 points per 100 transition plays per cleaning the glass. So, like, and on similar frequency, we're both at about 14% transition play frequency in these 2 games. So no matter how you slice it, we're just killing it. And there's so much room for error, including but not limited to our giant beautiful Latvian man being out for potentially the rest of the series as well. So I'm really confident. That's the rational side of me. And of course, there's the emotional side that's like, I can't have nice things. The last 2 PlayStations that I brought them home and they were DOA out of the box. Like, things just don't go well for me. Like, and I kind of feel the same way about the series. Like, the world's not going to let me have it. So until they've got it, I don't think I'll truly believe, guys.
I feel that. And I mean, let's be honest, right? Like, this is the game where this is the time Jason Tatum has to win you a game. That's it.
Sure.
Right? Like, I've defended him enough on the internet. It's time he pay me back with a masterclass performance. Like, this is it. Like, come on. And it's not always, and I'm not just talking about his efficiency. I'm talking ball security, rebounding. Like, I think it's more important the Celtics avoid their patented 3 problem areas of points off turnovers, cold shooting, and rebounding is more important than anything with KP. If they do that, it doesn't really matter who's on the floor. So this is the time where, like, him and Jalen need to look at each other and they need to say, like, this is our legacy defining moment. Like, this is it. Dan has stood up for me on the internet for 8 months. It's time to take him back. And hopefully they do it.
That psycho greedy's been in our got our backs for years. It's time to do it, man.
Do it for me. Don't do it for you. Do it for me. That's what matters.
Yeah, whatever it
Greeny
takes.
and Al Horford. But the transition numbers are wild because the Mavs have not been a great half court offense in the playoffs, and they've did a lot of their damage against the Timberwolves in transition. Like those Luka hit-ahead passes, stuff like that. We've completely shut that. 60 points per 100 possessions is absurd. Like, that is absolutely atrocious. That's like me taking a 3 in an NBA game. No, but it's just so incredibly bad. It almost feels fake. So I think it's a commitment, or I think it goes to the commitment these guys have and how bad they want this, because that's what transition defense is. Like, everyone's lauding Derek White for that block on PJ Washington. Jaylen Brown was right there too. Yeah. 2 dudes were chasing him down. And it seemed like they had no chance, and they both essentially got there. And I think this team is so absolutely dialed in, and I finally, truly, 100% trust a version of the Celtics since the Big 3 era. Like, I believe these dudes are going to show the fuck up every single game. They might get out shooting variance 1 or 2 games, but they are going to show up.
By the way, that Jalen hand on the back there, not a foul. It was a gentle caress of the back. Listen, at best.
If Tatum got pushed like that, we would all want, let's just keep it honest, we would all want that to be a foul. Like, it's okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy that Tony Brothers was working that game or whatever, but I mean, if that happened to me, I'm probably getting suspended on the internet, on Twitter for but it didn't, so it's not my problem.
That's right. That's right.
It happened to Tatum a couple times in the Indy series, and they did not call it. So there you go, karma. Thank you, Tony.
I'll buy that.
Yeah.
So, Greeny, if you're the Mavs, what adjustments, like, considering everything that we've just said and the fact that, like, no matter how you slice it, the Celtics just seem that just better on all fronts compared to the Mavs. If you're the Mavs going into Game 3, what adjustments are you considering?
Yeah, I mean, I was really surprised. I can't really remember. I think there was like 1 or 2 Luka post-up fadeaways from like 20, like right inside the arc that we saw, but I was really surprised that they did not go to the post with him more, especially if he's got this like chest injury. It's almost like their offensive approach with him is what gassed him out towards the end of the game in the fourth quarter. So I think they're going to maybe play him more off ball this time around, let Kyrie cook, try to keep Luka's energy level higher throughout the course of the game. If he's the only one that's going to shoot threes, let him maybe be a spot up shooter and thrive off catch and shoots. So I expect more of a Kyrie ball handling, initiating offense, especially if KP's not out there and you're going to be running pick and roll. He's a shiftier, quicker guy that I think, I can't even really remember how many times they had. I feel like Kyrie's been settling a lot on a lot of his one-on-one matchups, trying to hit pull-up threes and stuff like that. So more off-ball Luka, more Luka in the post, and I think they're going to get up to their playoff average of 34 threes at home, just because, like, when you're in this spot, you want to have the crowd juiced. And we know nothing juices a crowd like two or three made threes in a row. Now you're feeling good. You have a little bit of a cushion. So I think that's what they've been saving until it was like their break glass in case of emergency game. That's what game 3 is for them.
This is going to sound insane, but hear me out. I think we'll see more Gafford post-ups on Tatum, and not because they think it's a good look for them, just because it's going to wear Tatum out and it might rack up fouls on him. And I think that is more beneficial than 2 points or Gafford going to the line and going 1 for 6 on 3 fouls. So I think they'll go to that, and he got Tatum a couple times, and I think we'll see Jason Tatum continue to get attacked in the pick and roll. It wasn't that successful. I know like the matchup numbers say Luka was 6 for 8, but Tatum turned him over a few times. He forced him to pass a bunch of different times, and not like passes to wide open shooters like, oh shit, I got stopped, I better kick this thing out and reset the offense type of passes. So I thought Tatum was totally fine. He held up, but I expect part of their entire game plan will be to try to wear Tatum out, because you saw it with like Tatum, for how shitty he's shooting the ball, is still been our offensive engine. Like he's getting into the paint at will. He's making that initial pass after the defense is in rotation, and we're just basically unstoppable once that happens. So I anticipate a lot of that. And I'm with you, Greeny. I think the Kyrie on ball in the first half will be a big adjustment for them to try to preserve Luka so he can take over in the fourth quarter. But like the way we're making him work on defense, like I think that's a big part of the problem too. So I wonder if they try to hide him, like maybe go zone and put him in the middle of the zone. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's got to be zone or something different defensively to try and preserve Luka, which is, if I'm the Mavs, my number one priority is to try and somehow balance preservation of Luka Doncic so that he can do his thing in the fourth quarter while somehow keeping up scoring-wise with the Celtics in the process, which kind of, from what we've seen so far, feels like an impossible task. So it's a simple take, but like it comes back to Kyrie Irving, who... going back home, clearly there's something going on with the Boston crowd that it does actually get into his head because he's performed poorly there for years now. Can he perform a lot better back home in Dallas? And then, of course, the role players as well. Like you have to rely on some sort of productivity from those guys to A, have a chance to win the game, and B, get Luka to a point where he can win the game individually in closing time if we are unfortunate enough from our own butt-clenching perspectives to be at that juncture. Because at the moment, like he's just completely shut down towards the end of both games, and they need to do more to hold him up there. Beyond that, like I would expect them to go with Derek White a lot more. So we're pretty much switching everything 1 through 4, like we said. And there's very few matchups that we're actually sending a second defender at. But one of them is Derek White caught on Luka Doncic. We are actually sending over a second defender the majority of time where Derek's on Luka in single coverage. So do they go at that a lot more? Do they try and generate passing opportunities, playmaking opportunities for Luka out of that? It's kind of a slither of hope there because we're so efficient in where our help comes from and then rotating accordingly. But they're going to have to win on those margins. So I would expect Derek White to be targeted a little bit more. Beyond that, adjustment wise, Greeny, you got anything else?
Let me think. We haven't seen Dallas go double big, have they? Right? There haven't really been a lot of, because I'm thinking if they're going to play Tatum at the 5 and they play Hauser, and let's say Hauser slides in, do they just say, screw it for this 5-minute stretch? We're just going to go double big and try to just, run a ton of Spain pick and rolls and try to just like outsize the Celtics, force Joe to maybe adjust and play Cornette. I mean, obviously you're removing a ton of shooting, but maybe the 2 bigs are Kleber and one of the centers. So you can still have a little bit of that spacing. I don't know. I mean, at this point you have to try everything, especially if you're not getting the Kyrie, sustainable offense. The role players aren't hitting their open threes. Like that's where I think at that point you just have to try the kitchen sink and just say, they haven't tried or seen us with double bigs. Let's see what that looks like. And then the Celtics will be forced to adjust.
Yeah, speaking of kitchen sink, I wonder if we see Tim Hardaway. Like, he can fire away.
He's a microwave guy. Yep.
Jaden Hardy.
Jaden Hardy. I mean, it's same idea, but good God, he has looked fucking terrible when he's played. So did Hardaway.
Great in the playoffs up until this point. So maybe they're relying on a little bit of that magic.
Yeah, it's almost like we're better than the teams they had to play in the West or something like that. Imagine that. That's crazy thought. But yeah, that's the only thing I can really think from a personnel perspective. I like the double bigs call. Like throw Gafford and Lively out there and just huck and get every offensive rebound.
Right.
Yeah. And then Hardaway is just variance, right? Like he can get hot. He got pretty hot at one point in that March game we played against them. He cools off quickly and he's a terrible defensive player, but like, they need offense, man. They have not cracked 100. So I wonder if they're pack the paint, hope we miss, and fire up threes is what I expect their major game plan to be.
I'm enjoying this game of tag with us putting a guard in the dunker spot. Initially, that put Kyrie next to the rim as the rim protector. Then in game 2, the Mavs were switching that out. So they had a big with our guard next to the rim. But then that puts... I guess a big out on the perimeter with Jason Tatum. So do we kick out to the corner and attack that big in space with Tatum? Like, is that our counter to their counter?
Yeah.
That's just one of those.
They have not solved that problem. That is, I mean, we need to give Joe Mazzulla the proper amount of credit. He has presented a problem that Jason Kidd has not figured out how to solve. And the problem of why they can't solve it is because Luka can't stop a nosebleed on the perimeter. So when you can't provide resistance at the point of attack, nothing you do in regards to that dunker spot is going to matter, because the more you get into the paint, it's a pick your poison. And Jrue is unbelievable from the corner. Derek White is maybe the best bad pass jump shooter. Like, you don't have to pass it into Derek White's shooting pocket for him to make a three, which is insane. And then if you don't rotate and you come up, you can just dump it to Jrue in the dunker spot, who's thankfully made all of his layups around the rim, which we did not see to start the playoffs. So they're really, as long as like their best way to solve that sort of positioning is to provide resistance on the perimeter, and they just can't do it. And once you get into the teeth of the defense, it's over, because Tatum's going to get to the line. Jalen's going to get to the line. I trust Jalen more with any sort of, in the paint floater jump shot. And they're both reading that defense so well by now. It's like they're not even thinking. They know where the spots are. So there's no hesitation in their decision-making. That's why Kidd hasn't been able to solve it.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what you do. And when you add in like the spacing from our 5 position, there's just no, like, you just have to leave somebody open. That's how you solve it. And you can't really do that against this Celtics team, which is why we've been the best team in the league all year. And the fact that, like, it's not only has Jrue been awesome finishing, but the fact that it's a guard down there so they can take a couple comfortable dribbles and they're really good passers just makes it that much more dangerous. And at least like these incredible little sequences where it's like pinging down and then back out and then back down. And Tatum had a couple like really filthy little dump off passes for Jrue too, that like you just don't see him make all that often. Most of his assists tend to be kick out to corner shooters. So what do you put Gafford on Jrue Holiday?
I know.
It's
an
and he just spaces. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's so much of what playoff basketball is, right? It's not always about, who has the better roster, who has the better scheme. It's just, if I present a problem, if you can't fix it, I'm going to keep running that problem until you prove that you can limit it. And that's so when you're in these 7-game series where everyone's been scouted, everyone knows what you like to do. If you can't solve a particular issue, like we were never able to solve the Steph Curry problem, no matter what the Ime did in the finals 2 years ago. That is what Jrue or Derek in the dunker spot is for the Mavs. They can't figure out how to solve it, both from personnel and from scheme.
Please win. I feel like the three of us, like, we are neurotic enough that we're almost inadvertently in search of the biggest vulnerability points for the Celtics. Yes. And even us, we're like, that they definitely should win. So please, God, so close.
I just want to feel like, I just feel like you have to balance it out. That's how I've been this, respect the basketball gods, respect your opponent, and I just feel like people are maybe a little, we'll be fine. Like, it's not a default, we'll be fine without Porzingis. There is real value to what he contributed to both of those wins. It doesn't mean that you can't still win, but I'm hesitant to just, slide it in as an automatic. They'll operate without any hicks. I mean, if they have barely scored over 100 points these first two games themselves. So it's not like we're putting up 120 every night and things are great. Like if we have another cold shooting game from three and you don't have that same defensive impact, like you leave the door open to have this be 2-2 heading back to Boston.
I'm so nervous. I'm even more nervous now, Greedy. All right,
you got to keep it balanced.
Must win.
I'm a believer in it. You got to keep
it's
it
healthy.
balanced.
It's a healthy balance, that's for sure. When we come back, we are going to react to maybe the worst of all of the bad takes the national mainstream media has had on Tatum thus far. But first, here's a quick word from Game Time. The NBA Finals begin June 6th, and instead of working like I should be or putting any effort into preparing for the next podcast, I'm sitting around daydreaming about getting myself to an NBA Finals game at TD Garden. Game Time makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets. Our guy Jake Eisenberg's dad recently traveled from Australia to Boston to catch a couple of games during round 2. He used the Game Time app to sign up with code CLNS and get himself an incredible deal on tickets. I'm scrolling through the Game Time app right now, and there's a huge range of tickets available for games 1 and 2 of the NBA Finals in Boston for a wide variety of prices. I love that you can enable the all-in pricing feature, which just shows you the actual price of the ticket without any surprise costs at checkout. You can see the view from your seats before you purchase your tickets, and Game Time offers last-minute deals. You can hang out outside the arena, wait for a last-minute deal to pop up, and save up to 60% on tickets, whether it's sports, concert tickets, comedy, and so on. And Game Time ticket coverage means your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Shout out to Game Time. It's a great platform. Download the app, use the code CLNS for that deal on sign up. Now, before we get to this final segment here, there's a whole bunch of you here on the stream. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Do what you can to help us build out a little platform and defeat the algorithm. It'd be much appreciated. Now, to wrap up here, Colin Cowherd of the Volume went on Jason Timp's Hoops Tonight pod, which is a great show, and had this to say with regards to Jason
Kareem,
Tatum.
Bird, LeBron, Steph, Duncan, Michael. We need a basket. He's not consistently that guy. I know what I get with Jalen. Tatum, it depends on the matchup. It depends on his headspace. Where is he at? Is he playing with confidence? It's not a knock on him. But Boston is built to overcome his really bad three-point shooting series.
So to add context to that, Jason Timpf then went on to explain to our guy Colin that this the rhythm of this series, the makeup and recipe of the Celtics' success in this series is much more team-oriented and much more of a egalitarian-based offense rather than something more heliocentric that you'd expect around Kareem or Michael, for example. Where do you rank this, I guess, is the way to position this, Greeny, as far as like terrible takes and terrible, like uninformed opinions on the Celtics so far in this playoff run?
Well, you didn't even mention the worst part of that whole clip is when he then said, well, they went out and got Porzingis and Holiday. That really shows you what Brad thought of his two best players. And you're sitting there like, wait a minute. So you're implying Brad Stevens didn't believe in his two best players, decided to give Jalen $300 million anyways, and the idea is he went and got and improved his roster, which is the job of every GM in the NBA, and he did that not because he had the opportunity to build the best possible team in an effort to win a championship, but because he thinks that his two best players aren't built for the moment of getting them over the finish line. It is such an insane way to think about basketball, team building. The whole point of this approach, when Brad has openly said every decision I make is about enhancing the skills of my two best players. And I would almost argue the fact that he went out and got those pieces were him believing in he thinks his two best guys are good enough. So he had to go in and, take a swing for the fences. So for me, when I first heard it, I was very triggered. And then I realized that they all just have melted brains. Right, we've seen this at every point of the playoff run. It's, terrible take after terrible take. People know, I just can't he said that with a straight face. Like, oh, it tells you.
Yeah.
Did Red Auerbach not think of Larry Bird highly because he went and got Bill Walton? Did Steve Kerr or whoever not think highly of Steph? Like, every team in the NBA tries to add talent. That is not an indictment on your two best players that they can't get over the hump without KP, because KP, as we're seeing, is an injury risk. So it's like you don't believe in your best player, and you're showing that by trading for a guy who may not even be there when your best player might need him. It just, none of it makes any sense.
Who, by the way, they've lost one game since he got hurt in Game 3 of the Heat series in the playoffs. But honestly, I think Coward might be a genius, because this is such an incredibly stupid take that you almost have to be smart enough to think it up, because it's insane. Walton, KD with Steph. Didn't the Lakers trade for Kareem to add him to their
Bulls trade for Rodman? The Bucks just traded for literally it's every champion over the course of NBA history.
Yeah. So it's you just have to have maybe it's egotism, narcissism, something like that, where you're I'm going to ignore literally everything of documented history in the world, and I'm just going to fire this take off. And you almost have to respect it, except for the fact it's so incredibly dumb and see-through. But when I listened to that, I was just it was just so absurd. I feel like we just had to address it briefly, even though I know this is what he wants. This is what he's doing.
Yeah,
you eat the trash, but also I feel like we have a responsibility to document this, because a week from now, if the Celtics win the title, they're going to pretend it never, you already hear it now on all these shows. Oh, well, the Celtics have all these players. No wonder they're ahead 2-0. Man, all of you picked the Mavs in 5 or 6. So it's the rosters were the same before the series as they are now, and that didn't matter. So I think it's important that we document it.
Yeah, we're 2 wins away from winning the title, but we're, I think, 1 win away from me sitting down and planning the going over the receipts podcast as well. So hopefully we get at least that 1 win. But I think it's, at the very least, it's galvanizing us as Celtics fans, where it does bring us all together in our just total surprise for the dim-wittedness of these takes. But at the end of the day, it's just engagement farming or engagement trolling at the highest level.
He's rich as hell. So I guess the joke's on me, but at the same time, respect my basketball team. Stop being an idiot.
All right, let's wrap it up there. Greeny, as always, this was super fun, man. Thanks very much.
Listen, this is our obstacle. The power of this trio, we are going to carry them, and then when they win Game 3, I'm bullying my way back in for Game 4. We are this close, so I'm going to keep saying it at the end of these. The power of us as a trio, and when Jake's here as well, we will carry us through the finish line.
Hell yeah.
Of course.
Let's fucking do it.
Yeah, and shout out to our guy, Jake. All right, you can find all of Greeny's stuff over on Barstool Sports and on Twitter at StoolGreeny. We'll be back here live on YouTube tomorrow night, right after the final buzzer, then a little bit later in the evening for Celtics Late Night. We're also doing our usual watch party for Game 3 on playback. All the links are in the description. Spoonie, Greeny, love your work, guys. Until next time, go Celts.
I love